My sister-in-law and I were having tea when she asked, "Why did you fake your pregnancy?" I set my cup down. "What?" Nebra wouldn't look at me. "Mom said that you made up your pregnancy and then faked your miscarriage. She's telling people you're unstable." I blinked, trying hard to process the fact that my mother-in-law Darla was telling people I faked my miscarriage. "Nebra, I lost my baby 6 weeks ago. I was 9 weeks pregnant. I bled through my clothes in my own bedroom. I held what was left of my child in my hands." Nebra reached for me. "I believe you. That's why I'm asking you directly instead of just believing her." "Does Lance know?" "My husband. I don't think so. No one would say this stuff to his face." I stood up and started pacing. "She was one of the first people I told about the pregnancy, you know. I told her before my own mother because I wanted to fix things between us." Nebra looked down. "I'm sorry, Allison." "And now she's telling people my baby never existed?" I grabbed my keys. "Where is she right now?" Nebra hesitated. "Home, but maybe you should wait." "Wait?" My voice cracked. "She doesn't get to do this and hide from me." Nebra grabbed her jacket. "Then I'm coming with you." I stormed into Darla's house without knocking, and my father-in-law Rolando instantly shot up from the couch to seem bigger than me. "What are you doing here?" he asked coldly. I ignored him and looked at Darla, who was sitting in her armchair. I could tell she knew why I was here. "Unstable? Faking it for attention? That's what you've been telling the whole family?" Darla's expression became calm. I said what I believed. I gritted my teeth. "You believe I faked my miscarriage." "I believe you're not well, Allison. I've believed it for a long time." My hands started shaking. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. I felt my child leave my body. I was in a pool of my own blood. "And you're telling people it never happened?" Darla waved me off. "You've always been dramatic. This is just the latest performance." Rolando stepped between us, palms up like he was calming a dog. "Allison, that's enough. You need to calm down." "Calm down?" I spun on him. "You're insane if you think I'm going to calm down after finding out your wife is telling people I invented a dead baby for attention." "I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding," Darla corrected him. I said what I said. Nebra stepped forward. "Mom, that's crazy. You were thrilled about the pregnancy. You cried when she told you. You talked about nursery colors for an hour. You picked out a crib online and sent her the link." Something changed in Darla's face, like the monster that she was trying to hide. Her fingers twitched, then she recovered. I was being polite, humoring her. Rolando nodded. "Your mother was trying to be supportive even when she had doubts." "Doubts?" I stepped closer to Darla. My nails were digging into my palms so hard it hurt. "You called me every day to ask about my doctor appointments. You bought baby clothes and shipped them to our house. You started planning a shower." Darla shrugged. "I wanted to believe you. I wanted it to be real. But deep down, I knew something was off." "Nothing was off. I was pregnant. I lost the baby." "So you say." "So I know." I was pacing now. I couldn't stand still. "You were one of the first people I told about the pregnancy. I told you before my own mother because I thought it might fix things between us. I thought maybe, finally, you'd stop treating me like the enemy." Darla laughed. Soft. Patronizing. "You told me because you wanted an audience. You've always needed attention, Allison. From the moment you sank your claws into my son, everything has been a production. The tears, the drama, the constant need to be the center of everything." "I needed attention? You wore white to my wedding." "It was ivory." "You told me a wife is temporary." "I was stating a fact." "You invited Lance's ex-girlfriend to Christmas and sat her next to him." Darla's eyes narrowed. "I was trying to remind my son what he gave up when he chose you." Rolando cleared his throat. "That's not... Darla, let's not... Stay out of this, Rolando." Darla didn't even look at him. Neither did I. Nebra stared at her mother like she was seeing her for the first time. "You've been trying to break them up for years, and now you're using a dead baby to do it." Darla's head snapped toward her daughter. "Watch your mouth." "Why? Because I'm finally saying what everyone's been too scared to say? You're obsessed with Lance. You can't stand that he loves someone more than he loves you." "That's enough." "It's not enough. You've been punishing Allison since the day she showed up because she took your precious son away from you. And now you're telling people she faked a miscarriage because... What? Because you can't handle that she was going to give him something you never could?" Rolando grabbed Nebra's arm. "You need to stop." Nebra yanked free. "Or what, Dad? You'll tell everyone I'm unstable too?" The room went silent. Rolando's face went red. He stepped back. I moved toward Darla again. My whole body was vibrating. "So that's it. That's what this has always been about. You never wanted him to choose me. And now that he has, now that we were building a family, you're trying to destroy me. Darla's mask slipped. Just for a second. Something ugly flashed in her eyes. You destroyed yourself. I'm just telling people the truth. The truth? My voice was rising now. I couldn't stop it. You don't know anything about the truth. You weren't there when I started bleeding. You weren't there when I screamed for Lance. You weren't there when the doctor told us there was no heartbeat. Because there was never a heartbeat to begin with. I stepped forward so fast Rolando flinched, but I didn't touch her. I just got close enough to see her pupils dilate. What happened between us, Darla? What did you say to me before I lost my baby? Darla's jaw tightened. Nothing. You're lying. I'm not. The last conversation we had before I started bleeding. What did you say to me? Her eyes darted away. Came back. Darted away again. I don't remember. Yes, you do. I can see it on your face. Rolando moved toward us. Allison, that's enough. You need to. She's fidgeting. Neighbor's voice cut through. Look at her hands. I looked. Darla's hands were trembling. She was gripping her own elbows so hard her knuckles were white. Nebra stepped around her father. You always fidget when you're lying, Mom. You've done it my whole life. Every time you got caught in something, your hands gave you away. Darla shoved her hands behind her back. That's ridiculous. Then why are you shaking? Rolando tried to get between us again. This has gone far enough. Nebra blocked him. Let her answer, Dad. For once in your life, stop protecting her and let her answer. Rolando froze. He looked at his wife, then at his daughter. Then he stepped back. I walked right up to Darla, close enough to watch her throat move as she swallowed. What did you say to me, Darla? Her breathing was getting faster, shallower. Sweat was beading at her hairline. This is ridiculous. I don't have to. Say it. Darla flinched like I'd hit her. Say what? Whatever you said to me that day, say it again, right now, to my face. Her whole body went rigid. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. Her lips trembled. Her eyes went wet. She looked like an animal caught in a trap. Say it, Darla. Get out of my house. She screamed it. The words tore out of her throat so loud Rolando took a step back, but her voice cracked on the last word. Her hands flew up to her face. Her whole body was trembling now. And her eyes, I saw it. The way they went wide and desperate. The way her lower lip quivered before she bit down on it so hard it turned white. The way her whole face collapsed for just a second before she caught herself. That wasn't anger. That was guilt. Raw and desperate and barely hidden. Rolando grabbed my shoulder. His grip was bruising. Get out. Now. Both of you. He pushed us toward the door. I stumbled over the threshold. Nebra caught my arm. The door slammed behind us. We stood on the porch for a moment. Neither of us moved. Then Nebra took a breath. Come on. We walked to the car and Nebra started the engine but didn't pull out. Her hands were tight on the steering wheel. What did she say to you, before the miscarriage? What happened between you two? I stared at the house, at the curtain moving in the front window. I don't know why she's doing this yet. I turned to Nebra. But I saw her face. What she said to me that day, she remembers every word. And she's been running from it ever since. I know what you're thinking. Why would Darla do this? Why would she tell everyone I faked my pregnancy? What could possibly make a woman lie about her own grandchild's existence? I've been asking myself the same thing. But to understand what's happening now, you need to understand what came before. Darla didn't just wake up one day and decide to hate me. This has been years in the making. Let me take you back to the beginning. The first time I met my mother-in-law. The moment she decided I was the enemy. Lance and I had been dating for a year when he told me he wanted me to meet his parents. I was nervous but excited because I thought this was a good sign. He was serious about me and he wanted me in his life. We drove to their house on a Sunday afternoon, and I remember smoothing down my dress in the car. I checked my makeup in the mirror because I wanted so badly to make a good impression. Lance squeezed my hand and said, "They're going to love you." He was wrong. We walked in and Darla was already seated at the dining table. She didn't get up to greet me and she didn't smile. She just looked me up and down like she was judging livestock. Rolando shook my hand and said something polite, but Darla just gestured to a chair. Sit. Food's getting cold. Dinner was awkward and Darla asked me questions that felt more like interrogations. Where did I grow up? What did my parents do? How much money did I make? I answered everything as politely as I could, but I could feel her judging every word that came out of my mouth. Then Lance mentioned that we were looking at apartments together and that we were planning to move in together next month. Darla nearly spit out her wine. She set her glass down slowly and stared at her son. Excuse me? Lance smiled, completely oblivious to the shift in the room. We found a great place downtown. 2 bedrooms, big kitchen. Allison's been wanting a place with more light, and you've been dating for a year and you're already moving in together? That's usually how it works, Mom. That's usually how it works when someone is trying to trap you. The table went silent and I felt my face go hot. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Lance's hand found mine under the table and he squeezed tight. Mom, that's completely out of line. Darla ignored him completely. Her eyes were locked on me like I was prey. That's what women like you do, isn't it? Find a man with a good job, a good family, and sink your claws in before he realizes what's happening. I couldn't stay quiet. Women like me? You don't even know me. We just met and you're already deciding what kind of person I am? Darla's lip curled. I know exactly what kind of person you are. Lance stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Apologize. Right now. Darla laughed like he'd told a joke. I'm not apologizing for telling the truth. Then we're leaving. Lance pulled me up with him and started grabbing our coats. Rolando finally spoke up from his end of the table. Son, sit down. Your mother didn't mean... She meant every word. Lance was already heading for the door. And until she apologizes, we're done here. We left and Darla never apologized. But 2 weeks later, she called Lance crying and saying she missed him. She said she'd try to be better and he wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe her too, so we gave her another chance. That was my first mistake. And she proved that her apologies were meaningless because her next scandal was at my wedding. My heart dropped to my ass when I saw her wearing an ivory dress. Not white, but ivory. Close enough that everyone noticed, but she still had plausible deniability because it wasn't white. It's ivory. My own mother pulled me aside when she saw her. Do you want me to say something to her? My mom asked. I told her no because I didn't want drama on my wedding day. I just wanted to marry the man I loved, and I refused to let Darla ruin that. The ceremony started, and everything was beautiful. The flowers, the music, the way Lance looked at me when I walked down the aisle. I felt like the luckiest woman in the world. Then Darla started crying. Not quiet tears, but loud theatrical sobs that echoed through the entire church. Everyone turned to look at her, and the officiant actually paused. Lance's jaw tightened, and I watched Rolando rub her back and whisper something. But Darla just sobbed louder. I'm losing my son, she wailed. I'm losing my baby boy. I stood at the altar squeezing my bouquet, watching my mother-in-law make my wedding about her. My eyes were burning, but I refused to cry. Lance squeezed my hands and whispered, Ignore her. This is our day. We got through the ceremony and we said our vows and we kissed. For a few hours at the reception, I let myself be happy. I danced with my husband and laughed with my friends and pretended everything was perfect. Then Darla found me alone by the bar. She grabbed my arm and pulled me aside with her grip tighter than it needed to be. Enjoy this while it lasts, she said. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were ice cold. I tried to pull away, but she held on. What is that supposed to mean? A son's bond with his mother is forever. She smiled at me like she was sharing a secret. A wife is just temporary. I finally yanked my arm free and I felt sick to my stomach. Did you really just say that to me? On my wedding day? What is wrong with you? I'm stating a fact. Wives come and go, but I will always be his mother. And eventually he'll remember that. I found Lance immediately and told him everything. He confronted Darla without hesitation and she denied all of it. She started crying again and said I was making things up. She said I was trying to turn him against her and that she would never say something so cruel. Rolando pulled Lance aside and actually told him to apologize to his mother for causing a scene. Lance refused, but I could see how much it hurt him. We left early. Our own wedding reception, and we left early because of her. That night in our hotel room, I cried in my husband's arms. Why does she hate me so much? I asked him. What did I ever do to her? He held me tighter, but he didn't have an answer. We kept our distance from her since then, so much so that we'd been doing the awkward dance of family holidays and splitting time between my family and his. 2 years into our marriage, we went to Darla's on Christmas Eve, and I was determined to make it work. I brought gifts, and I helped in the kitchen. I complimented her decorations and her cooking and anything else I could think of. I was trying so hard to be someone she could accept. Then dinner started, and I noticed an extra place setting at the table. Who else is coming? I asked. Darla smiled in a way that made my stomach turn. Oh, didn't I mention? I invited Madison. Lance went pale beside me. Madison? My ex Madison? She's been having a hard time lately. I thought it would be nice for her to spend the holiday with people who care about her. Madison arrived 10 minutes later, blonde and beautiful and carrying a bottle of wine. She was wearing a dress that left very little to the imagination. Darla hugged her like a long-lost daughter and sat her right next to Lance at the table. Then she spent the entire dinner bringing up old memories. Remember when you two went to Mexico? You were so happy together. Remember prom? You looked so handsome in that tuxedo, Lance. I always thought you two would end up together. Everyone did. Madison was clearly uncomfortable and kept shooting me apologetic looks. It made me wonder why she even agreed to showing up in the first place. Lance was furious and barely touched his food. I sat there watching my mother-in-law try to set my husband up with his ex-girlfriend right in front of me. My hands were shaking under the table and I dug my nails into my thighs to keep from screaming. After dinner, I couldn't take it anymore. I found Darla alone in the kitchen and I cornered her by the sink. "What the hell are you doing?" Darla didn't even look up from the dishes. "I don't know what you mean." "You invited his ex. You sat her next to him. You've been reminiscing about their relationship all night like I don't even exist." "I was just being friendly. Madison is like a daughter to me." "You're trying to break up my marriage. Just admit it." Darla finally turned to face me, and she wasn't pretending anymore. The mask was completely off, and I could see the real her. "My son had a future before you. A real future with real potential. And you derailed it. He chose me, Darla. That was his decision. He made a mistake. He married me. He loves me." Darla stepped closer, and her voice dropped to something low and threatening. "You think a ring means anything? You think a piece of paper means he's yours forever?" She smiled, and it was the coldest thing I'd ever seen. "I've been his mother for 30 years. I know him better than you ever will. And eventually, he'll wake up and realize what he lost when he chose you." I stood my ground even though my heart was racing. "I'm not going anywhere, Darla. No matter what you do, I'm not leaving him." Her smile didn't waver. "We'll see." After that Christmas, I was completely done. Exhausted in my bones. I told Lance I couldn't do it anymore, and I couldn't keep fighting his mother while pretending everything was fine. We sat on our couch with him holding my hands and me trying not to fall apart. "I'm so tired," I told him. "I'm tired of being hated for no reason. I just want peace. I want a family that doesn't feel like a war zone every holiday." Lance was quiet for a long time and I could see him thinking. Then he said, "My mom always wanted grandkids, more than anything else in the world. She used to talk about it all the time when I was growing up." I looked at him and felt a flicker of something. "What are you saying?" "We've been trying to get pregnant, and if it happens, when it happens, maybe that's what finally changes things. Maybe a grandchild is what makes her accept you." I wanted to laugh. After everything Darla had done, he thought a baby would fix it? But I looked at his face and he was so hopeful, so desperate for his mother to be the person he wanted her to be. "If I get pregnant," I said slowly, "you want me to tell her first? After everything she's done? I want us to tell her first. Together. Show her that we're including her, that we want her to be part of this." Every instinct I had was screaming that it was a mistake, but I loved my husband more than I feared his mother. And I was so tired of fighting. "Okay," I said finally, "we'll tell her first. But if she does anything, she won't. This will change everything. I know it will." 2 months later, I was pregnant. I found out on a random morning while staring at 2 pink lines on a plastic stick. I cried so hard I could barely breathe. Happy tears and terrified tears and everything in between. Lance held me and we laughed and we planned, and for a few perfect days it was just ours. Our secret. Our miracle. Then we told Darla. I was bracing myself for the worst. For her to accuse me of trapping him again or question if the baby was even his. I was ready for some new cruelty I hadn't anticipated. But Darla surprised me. The second the words left Lance's mouth, her face crumpled and tears spilled down her cheeks. She pulled me into a hug, and it was the first real hug she'd ever given me. "I can't believe it," she whispered against my hair. "I'm going to be a grandmother. I've wanted this for so long." She was a completely different person after that. She called me every day to check in and asked about my symptoms and my cravings. She sent baby clothes to the house and started a Pinterest board for nursery ideas. She even apologized, sort of. "I know I haven't always been easy on you," she said one afternoon on the phone, "but I want things to be different now, for the baby. This is a fresh start for all of us." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her so badly that it hurt. I told Lance that maybe he was right. Maybe this was what we needed. A reason to move forward together. For 6 weeks, Darla was the mother-in-law I had always dreamed of having. Warm and supportive and genuinely present. I let my guard down, and I let myself hope that things could actually be different. That was my second mistake. Next thing I knew, we were fighting on a Sunday. I actually got whiplash from it all. Darla came over for lunch and everything was fine. We were talking about the pregnancy and about baby names and about the future. I was actually enjoying myself. Then Darla mentioned the delivery room. "I've been thinking about what I want to wear," she said casually while cutting her salad. "Something comfortable but nice. I want to look good in the first photos." I felt my stomach tighten. "Photos? What photos?" "Of the birth, of course. I want to be there when my grandchild comes into the world. I wouldn't miss it for anything." I glanced at Lance and he looked as surprised as I felt. Neither of us had discussed this with her. "Darla," I said gently, trying to keep my voice calm, "I really appreciate that you want to be there, but I've already decided that my mom is going to be in the delivery room with me." Darla paused. She looked up at me slowly. "Your mother?" "It's nothing personal. I just want my own mom there for that moment. It's really important to me. The warmth drained from Darla's face and I watched it happen in real time. The softness in her eyes hardened into something cold. Her smile flattened into a thin line. After everything I've done, she said slowly. After how hard I've tried to be there for you these past weeks, you're shutting me out for her? I'm not shutting you out. You can visit right after. You'll be one of the first people to hold the baby. I promise. I've waited years for this. Darla's voice was rising and her hands were gripping the edge of the table. Years, Allison. I have done everything right. I have been supportive and kind and patient, and you're telling me I don't get to see my own grandchild born? Lance stepped in. Mom, it's Allison's choice. It's her body and she gets to decide who's in the room. Darla's head snapped toward him like he'd slapped her. Her body? That's my grandchild in there. My blood. It's our child. And we get to decide. You don't decide anything. Darla stood up so fast her chair nearly fell over. She decides. She always decides. You just go along with whatever she wants because she's got you wrapped around her finger. Lance stood up too. That's not true and you know it. It is true. You used to be my son. My loyal, loving son who cared about my feelings. And ever since she came along, you've turned into her puppet. You don't even see it. She's manipulated you so completely that you actually believe you're making your own choices. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Don't you dare talk about him like that. He's not a puppet. He's a grown man who can think for himself. Darla turned on me and all the warmth she'd shown for the past 6 weeks was completely gone. This was the real Darla. The one I'd always known was hiding underneath. You, she said, pointing at me. You've taken everything from me. My son. My family. My place in his life. And now you're trying to take this too. The one thing I wanted more than anything in the world. I'm not taking anything from you. I'm asking for one boundary. Just one. My own mother in the delivery room. That's it. One boundary? You've put up walls since the day you met him. You've poisoned him against me and turned him into someone I don't even recognize anymore. He recognizes himself just fine. He just stopped letting you control every aspect of his life. Darla's face twisted into something ugly. Something dark and hateful passed through her eyes. You think you've won? You think because you're carrying his child that you've finally beaten me? This isn't a competition, Darla. This has never been a competition. I just want to have my baby in peace. Everything is a competition. And you've been trying to take my son from me since the day you met him. But I know what you are. I've always known exactly what you are. Lance grabbed his mother's arm. Mom, stop. You need to calm down. This is insane. Darla yanked free and her eyes never left mine. You want to know what I think? I think you got pregnant on purpose. I think you've been planning this since the day you met him. A baby to trap him forever. To tie him to you so he can never come back to his real family. There it is. The accusation I knew she would make. The one I was waiting for her to make. That's not true, and you know it. It is true. And you know what else? She stepped closer to me and her voice dropped to something low and venomous. I could see the hatred in her eyes. I hope your baby dies. The words hit me like a physical blow. I actually stepped backward and my hand went to my stomach. Lance went completely white. What did you just say? Darla didn't repeat it. She just stood there, breathing hard, her face twisted with hatred and triumph. Get out! Lance said, and his voice was shaking with rage. Get out of our house right now! Darla grabbed her purse and walked to the door. She stopped with her hand on the handle and looked back at us. You'll regret this. Both of you will regret this. Then she was gone. 1 week later, I got cramps in the middle of the night. I thought it was normal. Thought they were growing pains or something the doctor had mentioned. But then the blood came and it didn't stop. I was sitting there on my bed in a pool of my own blood. I woke up Lance, screaming and crying. He drove me to the hospital and I remember gripping his hand so hard I left marks on his skin. I remember the nurse's face when she looked at the ultrasound and how her expression changed. I remember the doctor's voice when he said the words that no mother ever wants to hear. I'm sorry. There's no heartbeat. I don't remember much after that. Just fragments of that horrible day. Lance holding me while I sobbed into his chest. The drive home in complete silence. The empty nursery we'd already started decorating with the crib Darla had picked out. The baby clothes she had sent, still folded in a drawer, never to be worn. Lance called his mother that night. I was in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling hollow in a way I had never felt before, like someone had scooped out my insides and left nothing but empty space. I heard him in the living room. His voice was flat and exhausted. Mom, it's me. Allison lost the baby. Silence. A long, terrible silence. Then I heard him say, Mom, are you there? More silence. And then a click. She had hung up on him. He came back to bed and crawled in next to me. He pulled me close and I could feel his tears on my shoulder. She didn't say anything. He whispered. She just hung up. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just lay there holding my husband, wondering how a woman could say what Darla said to me and then have nothing to say when it came true. So now you know. You know what I've been dealing with for years. You know what kind of woman Darla really is. And you know what she said to me before I lost my baby. She thinks I've forgotten. She thinks I buried it with everything else she's put me through. But I remember every word. And I know she does too. I saw it in her face when I confronted her at her house. The panic. The guilt she's trying to drown by calling me crazy. There's a family BBQ this weekend. Everyone who thinks I faked my miscarriage will be in one room. Darla will be there too. Hiding behind Rolando. Hiding behind her lies. But she can't hide from me. Not anymore. I'll update you guys after. This ends this weekend. The BBQ was at Lance's Aunt Hazel's house. We pulled up and I could already see the cars lining the street. Lance turned off the engine, but neither of us moved. We don't have to do this, he said quietly. Yes, we do. I squeezed his hand. I'm not going to hide while your mother destroys my reputation. I'm not going to let her win. He nodded and we got out of the car. We walked up the driveway together and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. The backyard was full of people. Cousins and aunts and uncles and family friends. The smell of burgers on the grill. Kids running around with sparklers. It looked like any normal family gathering. Then we walked through the gate and everything changed. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Heads turned. Eyes darted away when I tried to meet them. Someone whispered something and I caught the words, attention, and never even pregnant, before they noticed me looking. I felt Lance's hand tighten around mine. Ignore them, he murmured. We're doing this together. We walked further into the yard, and I could feel every single person watching us, judging us. Some of them wouldn't even look at me directly. They just stared at the ground or suddenly became very interested in their drinks. I spotted one of Lance's cousins standing by the drink table. Her name was Brooke, and we'd always gotten along at family events. She used to compliment my outfits and ask about my job. Now she looked like she wanted to disappear into the ground. I walked over to her and she physically stiffened. Brooke, hi. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Allison, I didn't think you'd come. Why wouldn't I come? It's a family BBQ. Brooke shifted her weight from foot to foot. She glanced around like she was looking for an escape route. It's just, with everything that's been going on. With everything that's been going on? I stepped closer. You mean with Darla telling everyone I faked my miscarriage? Brooke's face went red. I didn't say that. But you believe it, don't you? Brooke lowered her voice to almost a whisper. Darla said you've been struggling. That you convinced yourself you were pregnant when you weren't. She said it's a real medical condition. That you need help. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. And you believed her? Without asking me? Without picking up the phone and calling me directly? Brooke stammered. She was worried about you. She said she didn't want to make things worse by... She's been calling the entire family for weeks telling them I'm crazy. Does that sound like worry to you? Does that sound like someone who cares about my well-being? Brooke didn't have an answer. She just stood there sweating buckets. I shook my head. I thought you were my friend, Brooke. I thought we had something real. No, but you didn't even give me the chance to tell my side. I walked away before she could respond. Lance was right behind me. That was rough. That was just the beginning. We made it about 10 feet before someone stepped directly into my path. It was Lance's Aunt Celia, the one who Darla had been calling. She was a tall woman with sharp features and a permanent look of disapproval. Right now, that disapproval was aimed directly at me. Faking a miscarriage for sympathy, she said loudly. Loud enough for the people around us to hear. That's a new low, even for you. I felt my blood turn to ice. Excuse me? You heard me. Aunt Celia crossed her arms. Darla told me everything. There was no baby. You made the whole thing up because you're desperate for attention. You've always been desperate for attention. I stepped closer to her. Close enough that she had to look me in the eye. Say that again. Aunt Celia didn't back down. There was no baby. You invented a pregnancy to trap Lance and then invented a miscarriage when it stopped being useful. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows it? My voice was rising, but I didn't care. Everyone knows something that isn't true because Darla picked up a phone and lied to them. And none of you thought to ask me. None of you thought to check if maybe the woman who wore white to my wedding might not be telling the truth. It was Ivory, Aunt Celia said automatically. Oh my God. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're all drinking the same Kool-Aid. Did she give you a script? Lance stepped forward. His jaw was tight and I could see the vein pulsing in his temple. I was there, Aunt Celia. I held her while she bled through her clothes. I drove her to the hospital. I saw the ultrasound. I heard the doctor say there was no heartbeat. Are you calling me a liar too? Aunt Celia hesitated for just a second. Just long enough for me to see the doubt flicker across her face. Then it was gone. Darla said you're too blind to see what Allison really is. She said Allison has you wrapped around her finger. Lance laughed bitterly. So my word means nothing. Your own nephew's word means nothing. But Darla's phone calls are gospel. That makes sense. Aunt Celia's face hardened. Your mother is a good woman. She's always put this family first. And if she says something is true, I believe her. Even if it destroys an innocent person? I asked. Even if it turns everyone against someone who just lost a baby? Aunt Celia looked at me with something close to pity. You need help, Allison. Real professional help. And I hope you get it someday. She walked away and I stood there shaking. Lance put his arm around me. Breathe. Just breathe. I looked around the yard, trying to find a friendly face, trying to find anyone who wasn't looking at me like I was a monster. Then I realized something. Where's Nebra? Lance frowned. What? Nebra, your sister. She should be here. She's always at family stuff. I scanned the crowd, but I couldn't find her anywhere. I spotted Aunt Celia talking to another woman, and I walked over. Where's Nebra? Aunt Celia's face tightened. She's not welcome here anymore. My stomach dropped. What do you mean she's not welcome? She chose your side. She defended you to her own mother. So Darla told her not to come. I felt the words hit me like physical blows. Darla had cut off her own daughter, her own flesh and blood, because Nibra had believed me. That's insane, Lance said. She can't ban Nibra from family events. It's not your decision, Aunt Celia said coldly. And frankly, after everything Nebra said to her mother, she deserves to be excluded. I grabbed Lance's arm. We need to call her later, make sure she's okay. He nodded, but before we could move, a voice boomed across the yard. You need to leave. It was Rolando. He was walking toward us with purpose in his stride. His face was red and his hands were clenched at his sides. Everyone in the backyard turned to watch. You've done enough damage, Rolando continued. Both of you. Leave. Now. I stood my ground. I'm not going anywhere. This is a family event, and you're not family. Not really. I've been married to your son for over 3 years. I am family whether you like it or not. Rolando stepped closer. He was trying to intimidate me with his size, trying to make me feel small. It wasn't working. You've been poisoned since the day you met my son. You took him away from his family, turned him against his own mother, made him believe he needed to choose between you and us. I never asked him to choose. Darla forced that choice every single time. And now this. Rolando's voice was getting louder. He wanted everyone to hear. Inventing a pregnancy. Inventing a miscarriage. Making my wife look like a villain when she's the victim here. Lance stepped forward. His whole body was tense. She didn't invent anything, Dad. I was there. I held her while she bled through her clothes on our bedroom floor. I drove her to the hospital at 3 a.m. I saw the ultrasound before. His voice cracked and he had to stop. I watched my husband fight to compose himself. Watched him swallow hard and blink back tears. Before there was nothing to see anymore. I held her while the doctor told us our baby was gone. I held her while she cried for days. Don't you dare tell me she invented that. The yard was completely silent. Everyone was watching. Everyone was listening. For a moment, I thought maybe this would be the turning point. Maybe hearing Lance's pain would make them realize the truth. Then Rolando shook his head. She's got you trained, just like Darla said she would. You can't even see it anymore. Lance's face went blank. Something in him just shut down. I'd never seen him look like that before. Empty. Defeated. Dad. Don't. Rolando held up his hand. I don't want to hear it. Your mother warned me this would happen. She said Allison would turn you against us. And she was right. I felt the yard pressing in on me. The whispers, the stares, everyone looking at me like I was a monster who had invented a dead baby for attention. My hands were shaking and my throat was tight. For a moment, I wanted to run. Just turn around and leave and never see any of these people again. Let them believe whatever they wanted. Let Darla win. Then I spotted her. Darla was standing across the yard near the patio. She had a glass of wine in her hand, and she was watching the whole scene unfold. Not saying a word. Not jumping in to defend herself or attack me. Just watching. Letting everyone else do her dirty work while she stood there like an innocent bystander. And she was smiling. It was small. Barely there. But I saw it. That satisfied little smirk. Like she'd orchestrated this entire thing and it was playing out exactly how she wanted. Like she'd already won. Something inside me snapped. All the pain and the grief and the rage that I'd been holding back came rushing to the surface. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't scared. I was furious. I turned to Lance and grabbed his hand. She doesn't get to hide anymore. Lance looked at me. Then he looked at his mother across the yard. I watched understanding dawn on his face. He nodded. No, she doesn't. We started walking toward Darla. The crowd parted for us. Everyone was watching, but nobody tried to stop us. Darla's smile faltered when she realized we were coming for her. She straightened up and set her wine glass down, tried to compose herself. But I saw the fear flash in her eyes, the same fear I'd seen at her house when I'd demanded she repeat what she said to me. She knew what was coming. And this time she had nowhere to run. I grabbed Darla's arm before she could move. We need to talk, now. She tried to pull away, but I held on tight. Let go of me. You're making a scene. I don't care about making a scene. I care about the truth. I started pulling her toward the house and she stumbled trying to keep up. Lance was right behind us. People were staring, but nobody tried to stop us. They just watched with wide eyes and open mouths as I dragged my mother-in-law across the yard. We went through the back door and into Aunt Hazel's living room. Lance closed the door behind us and the sounds of the BBQ faded to a muffled hum. It was just the three of us now. Darla yanked her arm free and immediately went on the attack. This is assault. You just assaulted me in front of my entire family. I grabbed your arm. Don't be dramatic. Don't be dramatic? You're the one causing scenes and making accusations and turning everyone against me. I'm turning everyone against you? You've spent weeks calling every relative you have and telling them I'm crazy. You told them I faked my pregnancy. You told them I invented a dead baby for attention. Darla's chin lifted. Because that's what I believe. No, it's not. I stepped closer and Darla stepped back. You know the truth. You've always known the truth. You were there when I told you about the pregnancy. You cried, you hugged me, you bought baby clothes and planned a nursery. I told you I was humoring you. I had my doubts from the beginning. Then why did you act so excited? Why did you call me every single day? Why did you send me articles about prenatal vitamins and ask about my cravings? Darla's eye twitched. I wanted to believe you. I wanted it to be real. It was real. My baby was real. And you know it. Darla crossed her arms over her chest. Defensive. Closed off. You can say that all you want, but it doesn't change what I know. I shook my head. Something changed, Darla. Between when I told you about the pregnancy and now, something happened that made you go from planning baby showers to telling everyone I'm mentally ill. Nothing changed. I just started seeing clearly. You're lying. I can see it in your face. You're terrified right now, and we both know why. Darla's composure flickered. Her hands tightened on her arms. I'm not terrified. I'm concerned about your mental state. This behavior is exactly what I warned everyone about. My mental state is fine. Yours is the one in question. I took another step toward her. What happened between us, Darla? What did you say to me before I lost my baby? Darla's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. The last conversation we had, right before you stormed out of our house. What did you say to me? I don't remember. You remember every word. I can see it written all over your face. Lance stepped forward and his voice was shaking with rage. Tell her, Mom. Tell her what you said. Because I remember. I was standing right there. Darla's eyes darted between us. She was trapped and she knew it. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to stand here and be interrogated by, you said you hoped our baby would die. Lance's voice broke on the last word, but he pushed through. You looked my wife in the eye and you said you hoped our baby would die. And 1 week later, she was bleeding on our bedroom floor. The room went completely silent. Darla's face crumpled. Not into anger or denial. Into something else. Something raw and desperate and barely contained. That's not... I didn't mean... You didn't mean it? I stepped closer. Then why did you say it? Why would you say something like that to a pregnant woman? Darla's hands started shaking. She backed away from me until she hit the wall. I was angry. I wasn't thinking. I didn't actually want... You said the words, Darla. You looked at me and you said you hoped my baby would die. And then it happened. Darla's whole body started trembling. Her face was white and her eyes were wet and her breathing was coming in short, shallow gasps. I didn't. I couldn't have. That's not possible. Words can't... Why have you been telling everyone I faked my pregnancy? I asked. My voice was quiet now, almost gentle. Why have you been spending weeks convincing your entire family that my baby never existed? Darla shook her head. Tears were streaming down her face. Because I can't. I can't live with it. I can't sleep. I can't close my eyes without seeing. She choked on a sob. Without seeing what? The ultrasound. The heartbeat. That little flutter on the screen. I was so happy when you told me. I was so excited to be a grandmother. And then I said those words, and a week later. She couldn't finish. Her legs gave out and she grabbed the back of a chair to stay upright. Her whole body was heaving with sobs. If there was no baby, she whispered. If I can make everyone believe there was never a baby, then I didn't kill it. Then I didn't. I didn't. The truth hung in the air between us. Heavy and horrible and finally out in the open. Darla wasn't trying to destroy me. She was trying to destroy the reality of what she'd done. If the baby wasn't real, her words couldn't have killed it. If I was crazy and making things up, then she wasn't a monster who wished death on her own grandchild. I see that heartbeat every night, Darla sobbed. Every time I close my eyes, that little flutter, and I hear my own voice saying those words, over and over. I can't make it stop. I watched her break apart in front of me. This woman who had tormented me for years, who had worn white to my wedding, who had invited my husband's ex to Christmas dinner, who had told me a wife is temporary, who had spent weeks destroying my reputation to save herself from her own guilt. I should have felt satisfaction, vindication, victory. Instead, I just felt empty, and tired, and sad. You don't get to rewrite what happened to me, I said quietly. You don't get to erase my baby's existence because you can't face what you did. Darla nodded weakly. still sobbing, still barely able to stand. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Lance stepped forward. His face was hard, but I could see the tears in his eyes. Being sorry isn't enough, Mom. You destroyed Allison's reputation. You turned our entire family against her. You made everyone think she's crazy. I know I did. So you're going to fix it. Darla looked up at him with terror in her eyes. What? You're going to walk out there right now and you're going to tell everyone the truth. All of it. That the baby was real. That the miscarriage was real. That you've been lying for weeks. Darla shook her head frantically. I can't face them. They'll never look at me the same way again. That's not my problem. Lance's voice was ice cold. You should have thought about that before you started making phone calls. Please, Lance. I'm your mother. I'm begging you. And Allison is my wife. The woman you've been torturing for years. The woman you wished death on. The woman whose dead baby you've been denying. He stepped closer to her. You're going to tell them everything, including what you said to her before the miscarriage. Darla's face went even paler. I can't say that. I can't tell them I said that. You can and you will, or you'll never see me again. Darla stared at him. You don't mean that. I mean every word. Tell them the truth right now or I'm done. We'll move to another state. You won't know where we are. You won't have our phone numbers. You'll never meet any children we have in the future. I will cut you out of my life completely and permanently. Lance, please. Those are your options, Mom. The truth or your son. Pick one. Darla looked at me, then back at Lance, then at the door that led to the backyard where her entire family was waiting. Her face crumpled again and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. I can't. Then we're done. Lance took my hand and started walking toward the door. Wait! Darla's voice was desperate, broken. Wait, I'll do it. I'll tell them. Lance stopped, but he didn't turn around. Everything. Including what you said. Including what I said. Darla's voice was barely a whisper. Lance finally turned. He walked over to his mother and took her arm. Not gently. Then let's go. We walked out the back door and into the yard. Everyone was still there, still watching, still waiting to see what would happen next. The crowd parted as we walked through. I could see the confusion on their faces. Darla was crying. Lance was practically dragging her. Something had clearly happened, but they didn't know what. We stopped in the middle of the yard. Everyone formed a loose circle around us. Rolando pushed his way to the front. What's going on? Darla, what happened? Darla couldn't speak. She was shaking so hard she could barely stand. Lance kept her upright with his grip on her arm. Tell them, he said. Tell them what you told us. Darla looked around at the faces of her family, her sisters, her nieces and nephews, her cousins and in-laws, the people who had believed her lies without question. I lied, she whispered. What? Someone in the back called out. Speak up. I lied. Darla's voice cracked, but it was louder now. About Allison, about the pregnancy, about everything. The crowd went silent. Darla took a shaky breath. Allison didn't fake her pregnancy. She didn't fake the miscarriage. The baby was real. I knew it was real. I was there when she told me. I cried. I was so happy. She choked on a sob. And I've been telling everyone she made it up because I couldn't. I couldn't face what I did. Aunt Celia stepped forward. What do you mean what you did? Darla, what are you talking about? Darla looked at her sister and then looked away, like she couldn't bear to meet her eyes. Before Allison lost the baby, we had a fight. About the delivery room. About who would be there when the baby was born. She paused. Her whole body was shaking. And I said something terrible. What did you say? Aunt Hazel asked quietly. Darla squeezed her eyes shut. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. I told her I hoped her baby would die. The yard went completely silent. I could hear birds chirping in the trees, a car driving by on the street, the distant sound of children playing somewhere in the neighborhood. But here in this yard, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even seemed to breathe. And 1 week later, Darla continued, she had a miscarriage, and I couldn't live with it. I couldn't sleep or eat or think about anything else, and I heard my own voice saying those words. She opened her eyes and looked around at her family. So I told myself it wasn't real. And then I told everyone else it wasn't real. Because if there was no baby, then I didn't kill it. The silence stretched on. I watched faces around the yard cycling through shock and disbelief and horror and disgust. Aunt Celia's face had gone completely white. She stepped toward me slowly. Allison, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. If I had known. If you had known what? I cut her off. If you had known the full story, you wouldn't have called me mentally ill? You wouldn't have accused me of faking my dead baby? Aunt Celia stammered. I was just. Your mother-in-law said. My mother-in-law is a liar. And instead of asking me for my side, you took her word as gospel. You all did. I looked around the yard, at all the faces who had judged me, whispered about me, looked at me like I was crazy. I don't forgive any of you. You believed her without question. You didn't call me. You didn't ask how I was doing after my miscarriage. You just decided I was a liar and a fraud because Darla told you I was. Nobody said anything. Nobody could meet my eyes. Rolando stepped forward. His face was red and his jaw was tight. She's my wife. I was protecting her. Any husband would do the same. Lance turned on his father. You helped her destroy my wife's reputation. You called Allison a liar to my face. You tried to throw us out of this BBQ. I didn't know what Darla had said to her. I didn't know about any of that. But you knew your wife was spreading lies. You knew she was telling everyone Allison was crazy, and you helped her do it. Rolando puffed up his chest. I was doing what any husband would do, standing by my wife. Lance stared at him for a long moment, then he shook his head. Apologize, right now, to Allison. I don't think. Apologize or you're dead to me too. Rolando looked around the yard. Everyone was watching. Everyone was waiting. He had no allies left. No one was going to defend him. His shoulders slumped. He looked at me and his face twisted like the words were physically painful. I'm sorry. For what I said. For how I treated you. It was hollow. Barely an apology at all. But Lance just nodded. He was too tired to fight anymore. We all were. Without a word, we turned and started walking toward the gate. Nobody tried to stop us. In the car, Lance reached over and took my hand. We had survived this.